Okay, I think everybody is here, so may I ask everyone to please open their camera so that we can see each other as we start our day with a prayer. Miss Mary Claire, kindly lead the prayer for today. Amen. Okay, thank you for that. So, Miss Secretary, I know you're present. I can see you since you opened your camera. Kindly report to me after our discussion for today the absentees, if any, and just update me regarding our attendance, okay? So, can you please take a look at the file that I sent to our Google Classroom? I know you've opened it since I instructed you a while ago to open the file. So, kindly recite to the class the lesson that you learned from the past discussion. Anyone? Okay, yes, Jean? Mm-hmm. Great. Kindly expound your answer. Mm-hmm. Okay, good job. All right. Seems like you have retained what we discussed last meeting about Proverbs. Well, I thought that you'd forget it because a weekend has already passed, but I'm glad you did not. Okay, so before we formally start our discussion, I will be sending to you guys a pin to Kahoot. You know Kahoot, right? Okay, I know you've experienced that when we discussed our lesson last week. We used Kahoot and we will use Kahoot once again. So I have just entered the pin here on our chat box. So kindly use that pin and then enter our room for Kahoot. Okay? So let me go ahead and share my screen so that you will be able to see. Okay, here's my screen now. And go ahead and join now. I'll be waiting. Okay, since like Jin is here, our early bird. Go ahead. No rush. Okay, I believe we have everyone here now. So let's just change our music. Okay, let's use a Halloween. Okay, there. So I know you're ready now. So let's start our game. It's entitled The Filipinos. The Filipino character is actually a little bit of all the cultures put together. True or false? Mm-hmm. You have plenty of time. Okay, good job. Wow, seems like Jin is on the top. Okay, let's continue. The bayanihan or spirit of kinship or camaraderie that Filipinos are famous for is said to be taken from Malay forefathers. True or false? Mm-hmm. Correct. It's true. Next. Jin is still on top. Nice one. So let's continue. Each regional group is recognizable by distinct trends and dialects. For example, the sturdy and frugal Ilocanos of the north. True or false? Mm-hmm. That is true. Okay, let's move on. All right. Jin is still on top. Nice one. Our fourth statement. Some 50% of the population is Catholic. Spain's lasting legacy. 50%, true or false? That is correct. It's false because some 80% of our population today is Catholic. So we are 80% Catholic here in the Philippines. Okay, for our last statement. Wow, Pom now is the leading one. Nice one. So for our last statement, The history of American rule and contact oath merchants and traders culminated in a unique blend of East and West. True or false? Mm-hmm. That is true. Okay. So let's see who won. Well, everybody's a winner here. No worries. It's just that I think the winner here was the first one always to click on the correct answer. So no competition here, guys. We're just having fun. Okay, congratulations, Pom. You did well. Thank you for participating. Okay, so let me stop now to share my screen. Okay, all right, perfect. What do you think is the connection for activity to our discussion for today? Do you think there's any connection? Well, of course there is. As you can see, or as you can observe, the activity I provided, wherein I gave you statements about characteristics of Filipino people, are connected with the story that I asked you to read, the story entitled as, correct, The Origin of This World from Maranao, that is from the Anthology of Philippine Myths by Damiana L. Eugenio. So let me go ahead and copy and paste the story here on our chat box as your reference because we will be using this text uh, to help with our discussion for today. So let me go ahead and, okay, I have just entered it and kindly skim for a bit or make a run through to familiarize yourself once again since I know that you have already read it. Okay, so I would like to ask everyone to kindly provide at least one sentence from the story because we will be using that to our discussion. So go ahead and enter it in our chat box. No wrong answers here. Just make sure that you will be providing a sentence from the story. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Keep on coming. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. I believe we have more than enough when it comes to the needed statements or sentences for our discussion. So let me go ahead and choose five from the sentences you provided because we will be using that as example for our lesson for today, okay? Let me go ahead and share my screen to you and use the presentation so that you will be able to see the sentences that I have chosen that you provided, okay? Just a moment. Let me share my screen, okay? I believe you can see my screen right now. So there, um, let me copy and paste in here the statements that I have chosen that we will be able to use, okay? Just a moment. Mhm. Okay, let's use this one. Okay, so there, let me just paste it here on our presentation. Mhm. So these are all the sentences that you provided. And let us go ahead and identify the subject and the verb on the sentences. Okay, let's start with the first one. On the first one, this world is divided into 7 layers. Which do you think is the subject? Correct. The subject in this sentence is the word world. Let me encircle it so that we will be able to emphasize. Okay. And how about the verb in the sentence? Which do you think is the verb in the first sentence? Divided? No. Okay, well, no worries. Let me help you with that. So the verb for this first sentence is the word is. I know the reason why you thought that the verb in this sentence is divided because I know that you're all used into distinguishing or determining the verb in the sentence by simply identifying the action words or the action verbs. But then, of course, well, I believe you are able to tackle this on your earlier grade level that we have many kinds of verb, and one of them is the linking verb. So in this sentence, the first sentence, the subject is the world, and the verb is the linking verb is. Okay, everything clear? Perfect. I know you will get it. It's easy. All right, let's move on now to the second sentence. Okay, let's try to identify which is the subject here on the second sentence. Mm-hmm. Correct. So the subject here in the second sentence is the seventh layer of the sky. So once again, let's try to encircle it to emphasize it as the subject. Okay. And how about the verb? Correct. Of course, you already know it. It is the is as the linking verb. So let's underline it. Okay, you're doing good. Good job. So let's move on to the third sentence. Which do you think is the subject in the third sentence? Heaven, which is found on the seventh layer of the sky, is where good people's spirit go after death. Correct. The subject in the third sentence is the word heaven. Okay, let's encircle it. And how about the verb? Correct. We'll be also using the verb is. Okay, let's underline them. All right, let's move on now to the fourth sentence. The soul of every person is found in tightly covered jars kept in one section of heaven. So we should think it's a subject. Correct. The soul of every person is the subject in our fourth sentence. So let's encircle it. And of course, the verb is. Okay, let's underline it. Okay, you're doing good, huh? Oh, I'm sorry. So let's move on now to the last sentence. So the last sentence, this particular section of heaven is closely guarded by a monster with 1,000 eyes named Wallow. Oh, the name should be capitalized. Okay. So which do you think is the subject in this last sentence or fifth sentence? Correct. The subject is this particular section of heaven. So let's encircle it, this particular part of the sentence. All right. So I believe you already know the verb. Of course, the verb is. All right. You're doing good, class. I know that you're all bright students and you're able to easily understand our lessons. So let's go on and move on now to our discussion. So for today, we will be discussing our, as you can see on my background, basic rules of subject-verb agreement. Okay? Of course, all of the rules starts with the first rule. So rule number one, if the subject is singular, the verb should be singular too. So I know we had a practice earlier regarding identifying the subject in a sentence and also identifying the verb. So the subject in this example given is the world. So let's try to encircle it. And of course, the verb, just like our previous examples, is the word is. Okay? So this particular world, I mean the word world is in singular form. So we will be using this uh, the singular form also when it comes to the verb. So singular subject, singular verb. All right, let's move on to our rule number two. So rule number two, use a plural verb when the subject of the sentence is composed of two or more nouns and pronouns connected by word and. Okay, so let's take a look in here on the example. The world and the sky are divided into 7 layers. Okay, so which do you think is the subject here on our rule number two? Rule number two sentence example. Okay, that is correct. So the subject in here is the world. In fact, there's two subjects. I mean, there's only one subject, but there's two idea or two entity, the world and the sky. But then they are connected by the word and. So and was able to connect them. That's why we consider is I mean we consider them as one whole subject. So with that, when it comes to encountering sentences like this, we will be using the verb in its plural form. So you see, the verb in here is the word are. Okay? Everything clear? Are there any questions? All right. Good. Let's move on now to our third rule. So the rule number three, when there is one subject and more than one verb, the verbs throughout the sentence must agree with the subject. Okay, so on our example given, heaven, which is found in the seventh layer of the sky, is where good people's spirit go after death. So as you can see, there is one subject. So the subject in here is heaven. Okay. But then there are more than one verb. So the verb is, there's in fact two verbs here, but they're the same. They're both is. So let's underline them. Okay, so rule number three simply says that even if there is many verb present in the sentence, we will stick with the number of the subject. So since the subject is singular, we will still be using the singular form of the verb because we will be basing the form of the verb on the form of our subject. So since the subject is singular, the verb I mean, no matter how many they are, will still remain a singular. Okay? So let's move on now to our rule number four. Okay, so on our rule number four, when a phrase comes between the subject and the verb still agrees with the subject. All right, so on our example, Wallo, in addition to his 1,000 eyes, has also eight hairy heads. So many heads. So here, the subject, of course, is Wallo. Okay, let's encircle them. And then you see this phrase that comes between the subject and the verb, right? Let's first try to identify the verb. So the verb in here is the word has. Okay, let's underline that. So as you can see, in the middle of the subject and the verb, there is a phrase. So even though there is a phrase, let's try to put it in a box. Even though there is a phrase in here, it doesn't affect the subject-verb agreement that should be honored on the sentence. So since the subject is singular, even if there is a phrase that comes in between the subject and the verb will still agree with the subject. So the verb will still remain as a singular. Okay? So let's move on to our fifth rule. When two or more singular nouns or pronouns are connected by or nor, use singular verb. So let's use this example. This great being or the days it took him to create this world, nobody knows. So when two or more singular nouns or pronouns are connected by or, use a singular verb. So just like our previous example when on our um, sentence number two, I believe. So you see, there's two entity here or there's two ideas being connected by the word or. So don't that really doesn't matter since they are both singular being connected. So we can just consider them as singular subjects. So this great being, as well as the days it took him. Okay, those are the subject. And the verb in here is the word knows, right? Knows. So knows is the singular form of the verb. So that is why knows honored the singularity of the subject. So the subject is singular, therefore the verb knows is also in the singular form. Okay? So in our last rule, rule number 6, in sentences beginning with there or there are, the subject follows and agrees with the verb since there is not a subject. So it just simply says that even if there is the first word that is present in the sentence, we will still uh, use the subject of the sentence itself. So on the example given, there is a particular section of heaven that is closely guarded by a monster with 1,000 eyes named Wallow. So there is a particular section of heaven. So the subject is this particular section of heaven, right? So the rule number 6 simply says to disregard the word there or there is because it really doesn't affect the subject-verb agreement. Let's just always focus on the singular or the plural form of the subject so that we can match it with the singular or the plural form of the verb. So here the verb, of course, is the word is. Okay? Any questions? Any clarifications? Mm-hmm. All right, so let's move on now on our activity. So once again, look for sample sentences from this text which observe one particular subject-verb agreement rule that we discussed. All right, so what your task is to look for a particular sentences from the text, and then you identify if one of the rules we discussed is present, and then kindly enter it on our chat box. All right, so that I will be able to see if you're able to understand our lesson. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, and then I will recognize you and ask you to unmute your mic so that you can go ahead and ask your question. Go ahead, class. I'll give you 5 minutes for this activity. Okay, I have now seen the sentences that you provided on our chat box, and I congratulate everyone for successfully entering correct sentences where subject-verb agreement that we discussed is present. Thank you so much for your cooperation to our activity for today. So just some reminder regarding the subject-verb agreement. So why is it important? Why do you think I you need to learn about it? Well, one thing, it speaks volume regarding your credibility as a speaker. So say for example, you're speaking in front of a crowd or speaking in front of anybody for that matter. So you see, if ever you'll be using the correct subject verb agreement, that says how learned you are regarding the language that you use, especially here in the English language. So um, it's not just any kind of lesson that you are required to learn. Well, you learn that for that particular purpose. You learn subject verb agreement for that particular purpose. Okay, so I believe you all understand our discussion for today. And if you have any questions, feel free to message me on our Messenger group chat or on our Facebook group. Okay, so for your assignment, um, kindly research and read about literary writing and academic writing. Okay. Once again, research and read about literary writing and academic writing. So you already know our discussion for the next meeting, right? So, but no worries, I will be posting this assignment also to our Google Classroom so that if ever anybody won't be able to take notes for our discussion for today, and as well as any for those who are absent for today, they will be able to see the assignment for next meeting. Okay. So, are there any more questions, class? Okay, if none, let's call it a day. Thank you so much for coming into class today, and God bless everyone and stay safe. Bye bye.